We're looking at turn one of Dark Venture, an adventure card game. We are set up with 4 characters and a co-op play. And this is the initial location of the crossroads. We have moved in just 2 turns have happened, or two action points, I should say, have happened to move us into this area here, which is a robotic castle, and there is a robotic character who lives in there, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But just looking at this card game and looking at the booklets that come with it, the location guide and the action guide that we're using to play with it, just looking at it and not even playing it or knowing anything about it, I think sheds some light or highlights how stale the fantasy genre has become, to my mind, because people are talking about the look of this game in a way and comparing it or pointing out also Dungeon Degenerates as a game that has a different kind of look. I think all that is true, but those are really only the 2 games that I can think of right now that are in the fantasy genre that are different enough in look. And well, why does the look matter? To some people, the look doesn't matter at all. To me, the aesthetics of the game is so important that there are certain games that I suspect I would like mechanically, like Spirit Island, for example, that I just can't get myself to be interested in to play because the visuals on them are just so lackluster, in my opinion. What Dark Venture does beyond just the look of the game so successfully is to really involve you in creating a world as a 3-dimensional place that you feel that you are inhabiting. And how does it do that? Well, one of the interesting parts of the game is that the characters that come into the game during the course of the game are not just characters from a character deck, but after you choose your heroes in the game, you are shuffling into the character deck the remaining hero cards that you have not used. So during the course of the game, as has happened here immediately, you can encounter those heroes. And when you encounter somebody, you are directed to encounter them by various things that happen in the game. In this case, it was something that happened in the location that we entered. So now, I guess technically this is a spoiler of the game, so if you are not interested in seeing anything in the location guide, for example, or the action guides, you should know that some things will be revealed here just to show you how the game plays. We have our 4 characters, we'll talk about them later, and they decided to move into this location that one of them had drawn into their hands. The reason that they decided to do that was it is a location with no exits. It only has 1 entrance and 1 exit, and one of our characters, the Plant Man, had a condition of the side quest that he had drawn, which is part of the victory, the way you attain victory in this game, to enter into location with only 1 entrance and exit. So he played the location card and the party went there. And that immediately, with just that action, gave him the satisfactory conditions for his first side quest completion. And he gained 1 quest point. And you can see here on the quest track, his token is on the number 1. In playing co-op, ultimately the goal is that each of the 4 characters, or each character that you're playing, I'm playing 4, needs to attain 20 quest points before the day ends. And you have 12 turns in the game during the course of the day, sunrise meridian to sunset, and you will be advancing the sun after everybody has completed their turn. You must, again, all 4 characters, or all characters you're playing, must attain 20 quest points. So you're really dictated by these quests. Now, the quests are essentially randomized and randomly drawn, and they are either heroic or one of the smaller side quests. This is an example of a heroic quest. It's going to be worth 6 quest points. You get a little bit of a story, or, I mean, it's not a story, it's a couple of sentences to explain to you what's going on. And in this case, you are exacting revenge upon somebody who has killed your friend. And it explains to you how to fulfill this quest, what you need to do. In this case, it's to pull in a hero and basically fight that hero. And we have the hero in waiting up here. We haven't constructed its attributes yet, but it is going to be up here and placed in a location. So that's an example, and this would be worth, as I said, 6 quest points of a larger, more involved quest. While the game is exploration based in the sense that you're moving through locations that you play as cards from your hand, the game in the co-op version at the very least, which is what I am playing and discussing here, is more like a puzzle game than an exploration game, because what you're doing is you are assessing what the requirements of the quests are before you do anything at all. So the reason that I had this first card played as stated was because it fulfilled a request, not because of any other reason. And I did that by assessing what all the quests were and did we have any cards in our hands that could fulfill those requirements. The Princess Bretta, her heroic quest is that she must help another hero fulfill their quest. So in this particular case, she is going to be helping the plant man gang up on this hero that we're going to encounter and defeat him. So that will not only fulfill the requirements of the plant man's heroic quest, but it will also fulfill her heroic quest for 5 quest points. If this seems somewhat calculating, it is. This game to me is more of a puzzle in the structure or guise of an adventure than what I would think of as an adventure game itself. A game where there is less available knowledge initially, and you're just exploring and encountering like a rune-bound type of situation. For example, there are many examples I could give, and you're seeing what you get, and then you're dealing with it. Here, especially in the co-op setup, playing solo, it's very much a puzzle. There's a lot of information that you need to remember and absorb for each of your characters, and you need to puzzle out how to make the cards work to help you solve the puzzles that you're given before the turns are over in the game. Let's take a closer look at some of this information. Now, I have chosen to play this game setting up with 4 characters. You can play it solo, and there are some tweaks and rules there. Solo meaning with 1 character. You could also obviously play it co-op with fewer than 4. I chose my heroes randomly, and this is the Plant Man. You'll see that each hero has a number here, which is great because the tokens for the characters have numbers on the back, and that makes it super convenient to find them with the art being as it is. There's also standees that I don't like to use. You get the option of either the token or the standee, and that's just, there's a lot of details in this game, just practically speaking, component-wise, that are fantastically executed, and that is one of them. It just makes it so easy to find what you need. Another one of them, and I'll be pointing this out, are the custom dice, which are really great, that come with the game. Anyway, this is a Plant Man hero, and the heroes have 4 basic stats. We have a power stat, which comes into play obviously with combat. There isn't a differentiation in this stat with ranged or melee combat. We have the speed stat. Mind is, well, I should say, the speed stat is used during combat to see if somebody can strike first. The mind stat comes into play when you search a location, and the luck stat comes into play when you're trying to gain a follower or influence some of the characters that you encounter in this world. You also have a maximum health, and the maximum health is important and is delineated as such because part of what happens in the game is if you lose health in the game, so you indicate your maximum health with this black cube. If you lose health in the game, you would mark it with a red cube going down, and then you can recover up to 2 points of health up to your maximum at the end of a turn. So that's why it's important to indicate what the maximum is. You also have some other tokens that come into play adding offensive and defensive capability to you. And this will happen based on items that you have in your that you are equipped with. So, for example, this fellow, the plant man, has and is carrying a golden sword, and so this golden sword adds a number 2 to his value here as an attack value, and it also will increase some of the other stats. So you can see here he gets a 1 speed on there, which is added to his baseline 3 to give him a speed of actually of 5, because he's also wearing this red solar cape, which is going to give an additional 1. So the mechanics on this are pretty straightforward, and when you are rolling, I'm not going to go through too much detail. This is not a playthrough video or a rules overview even, but just trying to give you a flavor for what the rules are and really talk about what makes this game so unique and excellent. So he's wearing this cape and the sword, so that will add to his values. And as the items that they're wearing or carrying change, you will change these values as needed. Those are his starting items, and he also has some characteristics, some special characteristics, as do everybody, and they're all different. He can regenerate, so after a battle, he can regain 2 health. He has a fibrous body. So what this means is that if he encounters somebody from a beast faction, he's going to be reducing that damage by 2. Well, what is a faction? This is really a world that you are in. And as stated, it is very three-dimensional, and you have many characters that you will be encountering. Everybody is part of a faction, and our plant man here is part of course, the plant faction. But you can see these icons will indicate when you encounter somebody, you need to see what type of faction they are to determine whether or not this attribute will come into play. And this is where, again, you're going to be doing a lot of reading. If you're playing it this way, you're going to be doing a lot of reading of the cards and the details to remember what's going on. But they're all extremely thematic. And I think if you can get into this world and imagine this plant man, of course he's going to have a fibrous body. And of course that will be a benefit for him. He also has another benefit that has to do with combat and losing consciousness, where he has the opportunity to resist the loss of consciousness. So that is the Beastman character. In the co-op version of the game, everybody starts out with 1 heroic quest and 1 side quest. You can, at the beginning of a turn, you can gain a side quest if you wish, up to 3 side quests, or you can trade in a quest if you have 3 already and want to get another one or a different one, you can trade one in. Now, this is where some of the randomness of the game and the sort of the gaming mechanics may feel a little bit challenging, because the quests are in a quest deck. These are the side quests, and these are the heroic quests. The quests can require that you encounter certain characters, for example, or certain locations, for example. Here is the stack of cards of locations, here's the stack of cards of characters, and here are the items. They can also require certain items. This is potentially an issue if, for example, you have chosen a quest randomly that requires you to get to a certain location, and it ends up that the location is like the last one in the deck. Now, of course, you won't know that. So you may be hanging on to a quest and then eventually abandon it, and then after you abandon it, that location comes up, or that item comes up, or that character comes up. The cycling through of the side quests mitigates that a little bit, because you can choose things based on cards that have already come out or things that you think are possible to achieve. On the heroic quest, you can be carrying more than 1 heroic quest, but it is harder to get another heroic quest or switch out a heroic quest. You can do that. Everybody can do that automatically at the meridian when there is energy flowing through the land that lets you do that. So that is an aspect of the random nature of the game kind of colliding with the puzzly aspect of it where I think you do need, in order to be successful, you need to be planning out very carefully what you're going to do and what you're going to spend your actions on. The spending of the actions is really at a premium because everybody only has 3 actions to do before they're done in that turn. So once everybody does their 3 actions, you're advancing the time to the next turn. And again, time is at a premium. I have moved this the way it is to show you the if you're prone to thinking about things way too much, I think you could get into trouble here. So we had the first action was to move into to play a location, to take this card that I said he had because he knew he needed to fulfill a quest and to place it down. The second action is to move. Now, when you're playing co-op, if you choose to move as a party, one character can take one action to move the entire party into a location. If you're really trying to maximize your time and expenditure, you would spend a lot of time trying to figure out who was the person who could be best chosen to use the action point to move the party. In this case, I just chose the plant man to do that because I basically was saying to myself, his whole turn is to move into this place and he's going to fulfill his side quest, which he did. So I just had him exert that action. But you could spend, as I said, a lot of time trying to figure out who is best to do that. Now, if the entire party was moving back out, or when the entire party moves back out, it's going to cost another action point to do that. So it could be any of the 4 that expend that action point. If somebody wants to move individually away from the party, then they must expend that move action. Let's take a closer look at this location and what happens when we move into it. And folks, there's going to be some spoilers here, so if you are not interested in the details of any of the locations, now is time to skip. This is the robot's castle, and we pulled it in because it was in the hand of the plant man, and he played it down to the table. The first thing that you do when you do that is you read the description of the location that is referenced by the circle. There are 2 location books currently with the game. There's Location Guide A and B. We are playing with Location Guide B, so we turn to the numbered location and we read the description. It says, you approach a strange armor-clad building with a rotating satellite dish atop the tallest tower. A large automated gun turret pans back and forth menacingly, guarding the front of this stronghold. Curiously, the 2 heavy steel entry doors stand wide open. And then it tells us if this character is already in play, we are meant to move him here. If somebody has him in their hand, we must place him here. Or, as was the case here, we need to draw him from the character deck and then place him here. Further, it says equip him as necessary, and then it explains certain conditions about his character. And it tells us basically that when anybody enters his location, they need to deal with the potential for damage from his guard turret. And to do that, we're rolling 2d6 plus our speed and trying to get a total of above 9. In this case, everybody did get out of the way except for one character. So what we did was we found the character card, and this is the character card. And as mentioned, he could be potentially played as a hero. And we need to build him up, and we need to give him items, and we place him down. We find his token or standee, and we place him down in here. And we must remember the impact of this location, which is that anytime anybody enters in, we have to do a roll to see if they are damaged by him. And then if they become damaged by him, they are in combat stance to him any other time they encounter him. So there is a lot going on that you need to remember, including the building up of the character. And if you are somebody that feels that once you get into a game, you don't want to have to dig back into the box and start going through and putting down the new stats and remembering things, this may be not to your liking. But it does create a world. It serves the purpose of creating a world. And this game really benefits from allowing yourself to become involved in it in this way, to allow yourself to envision this robotic character here. He's got his faction is indicated too, and that is also something that is important to note, both for theme and for mechanics. So he is a construct, this purple circle here. So imagine yourself in a world where there is a lone construct wandering around his castle. Of course, he's going to have some kind of defense mechanism, this turret that he sprays you with the fire. Everybody is able to jump out of the way except for one of you. The Haglor the ghost, in fact, was somehow gotten by this barrage of gunfire. Allowing yourself to become involved in this way is key to enjoying this game. And so that is what happened just with one movement into a locale. And further options are open to us as we read. While in the castle, a player's character may inspect Paragrad's computers for 1 AP. You may look at the top 3 cards of either the character, location, or item deck and place them back in any order you choose. This is extremely valuable, and we can see that with 4 characters here, we could potentially be examining every one of those 3 decks if we chose to use our action point in that way. The other option is to consider, well, if we don't want to use all of our action points in that way, which is the deck is most important for us to be examining and placing back in a certain order. And to ascertain that, we may want to look at some of our side quests. So for example, Bilkid the Strong, one of his side quests is he must equip a new weapon and keep it equipped for 2 game rounds. So he would have an interest potentially in examining the item deck and reordering it if a weapon was coming up to get it closer to the top. For example, let's see, we've got Haglor the Ghostly. His heroic quest is he needs to encounter this particular creature who has attacked and destroyed a nearby village. Again, the point is that this creature could be at the very bottom of this deck. This creature could be anywhere in the deck, but getting a gander at the top 3 cards of the character deck could be important to Haglor the Ghostly. Is it important enough to spend an action on right now? Well, these are some of the questions that this game engenders. Back to Princess Bretta, and she has, as we pointed out, she needs to help somebody in order to attain her heroic quest, and she's definitely going to be helping the Plant Man with his quest to kill a hero, a random hero who we pulled in. We happened to pull in Kreft the Ancient. Now, unfortunately, Kreft the Ancient has a health of 40, but our requirement for the Plant Man is within 2 rounds to place this hero in a location and fight this hero. We won't be placing the hero in the robot's castle because we don't want to have to deal with constantly getting out of the way of his turret fire, but we could move back into the crossroads and just get him placed there. We know this is a benign location in the game, so we can come back to this location and place Kreft the Ancient there and begin to fight him. And I think that's probably what we're going to do next. But before we do that, I do want to take advantage of the fact that we could search at least one of these decks, if not more. And I think I will have Bilkid the Strong for an action. He is going to look around the robot's castle at some of his items. So we're going to draw the top 3 item cards here and see what we get. Obviously, if there's a weapon, we're going to try to put it right up top. We have a Gorgonberry tonic. This is a healing tonic. We do have a weapon. We have a gleaming sword, and this is something that he could equip. So that's a good candidate to put right on top. And we have the prism key. This prism key comes into play, I remember reading with somebody has a sword, I believe, that needs this prism key. So that may be that may be important. Actually, it could be Bilkit. Again, this is where when you are playing solo running 4 characters, there's just a lot to remember. Here we go. Bilkit indeed had the prism sword, and it does need the prism key. So in fact, once he picks up that key, he can use this sword. I should mention that there is, you can have items that are equipped and that are active, and you can have items in your inventory. You may only have a total of 8 cards in your tableau at one time between the equipment and the inventory. You can have up to 5 cards in your hand. So there is some manipulation that can go on if you need to equip things and you don't have the space for them. But this prism key, this was pretty well located, and I will put that on top, and I will put the gleaming sword second, and then the tonic third. I don't necessarily think, well, you know, we're going to have some combat, so in fact, I'm going to do it in a different order, because we're gearing up to fight this Kreft the Ancient very soon. So I am actually going to put the berry tonic next, and then I'm going to put the prism key on top so that Bilkid can hopefully find it when he looks for it, and that will be a search action that he can take. So I have done that. I need to refer to the location guide again to see whether this location can be searched. I don't think there's any restriction on that. Nope, no restriction on that. So Bilkid he did his action of inspecting the computers, and he moved that item to the top, and now he is going to search this location. You can only search the location one time, and if you find something there, you need to indicate that it has been, well, actually, you may need to indicate its search whether or not you are successful. That I need to confirm. In any case, when you search, you put a search icon down here. Yeah, you need to put the search token down no matter what. So Bilkit is going to search, and to search, what you're doing is you're rolling 2d6, and the optional, or the actions are clearly delineated here. So to search a location, you're rolling 1d6 plus your mind, and at an 8 or more, you will successfully search. He's relatively smart. He's got a 4, so we are rolling just 1d6 to do this search, and that's all we're going to be able to do in terms of search here. Unfortunately, he only rolled a 1, so he was not able to get the sword. So we unfortunately need to indicate that the location has been searched. We cannot search again. However, somebody else can get this and trade it to him. And in fact, we remember that Princess Bretta has a side quest where she needs to trade an item with another character. So now she has her mini goal here. She's going to be able to be the focus of solving some quests. She's going to help the plant man, and she's also going to find that sword, give it to Bilkid so that Bilkid could equip his sword, and that will fulfill his current quest. I've reoriented the game here with a little bit more space. And I will say that though this game comes in a small box, it takes up a huge amount of table space. And the other thing that I've done is you'll notice that there are now 2 side quests here for these characters, because at the beginning of a turn, I failed to mention this and do it, you may draw an additional side quest to a maximum of 3. So you start out the game with a co-op game with 1 main quest and 1 side quest, and then as the turn starts, you are drawing in. So the 2 characters that have gone already have also drawn in the second side quest. So that's one point I wanted to make to just explain the presence of these additional quests. All right, I need to pull up and show us where we are here in the robot's castle. So the next thing that we're going to do is Princess Bretta is going to begin her turn, and she will do so by drawing a side quest. And I'll have to go all the way up here to the top of my table to get it. So she's going to draw her side quest. Now, this does not take an action point. It's just what you do when you start your turn. So, back, you smell like eggs. Defeat an Eggman in combat. Gain 2 quest points. Okay. Now, I believe we have, I think I remember that somebody has a character of an Eggman in their inventory, so we will check on that we will give her this. And now she's going to begin her actual turn, by doing something that requires an action point, which is to move us to the crossroads. So the first thing that she's going to do is move the party from the out of this dangerous area into the crossroads. So we will expend her AP to do that, and we will take the party, which is this stack of 4, and move us back to the crossroads. Now, what I'm going to do is to have Princess Britta search, because her mind value is quite high. Her mind value is a 7, and we need 8 or more to successfully search, and we can get the item that way. Digging into the crate, chopping it up, whatever, requires power, and we will let perhaps the plant man do that later on. So the first thing we're actually going to do for the attempt to get that item that we know we need is to roll the 1d6, have Princess Britta searching the area. Just because we know what's there, it still counts as a search. So she's going to do a search, rolling with her value of mind of 7, and we need to successfully search, we need an 8 or more. So we are pretty much guaranteed that because we've got a 1d6 roll. She happened to roll a 6. So she has successfully searched the crossroads, which you can do. That's different than looking into that crate. She successfully searched the crossroads. So the first thing we're going to do is indicate that this area has been searched by placing this token. And then we know, because we did this before, that we're going to draw this item and that this is going to be the prism key that she needs to give to Bilkid. So we'll mark off that she has done 2 actions. Now, in order to fulfill her side quest here, which is to trade 1 item with another character and gain a quest point, what she will do is she will spend her final action of this turn to do a trade, and she will be trading with Bilkid. So she'll be giving this to Bilkid. It will go into his inventory. Whoops, I ran out of memory again. My apologies. So she is going to trade this item with Bilkid. Now, that costs her an action point. My interpretation of the rule, although it's not totally explicit, is that in order to have a trade, Bilkid also must use an action point because he's going to be actively trading. So he was just giving her, if he was just receiving something, I don't think that would cost him an AP. But this is a trade, not a gift. And the reason it is a trade is because she needs it to be a trade in order to do this side quest. And since we're working cooperatively here, we're making the decision in effect to trade off one of his APs so that she can get a QP. So he is going to do an action, and as part of his action, he will be trading with her. How much it matters what we trade. She already has the unequipped Bitter Blood tonic, which will give her some an increase in base health. Oh, and then lose health. Interesting. And this elixir actually gives a weapon attack bonus. Well, let's give her this Moonseed elixir because she is going to be participating in combat to aid someone else in their heroic quest for combat, and therefore also fulfill one of her requirements. So we were going to give her this Moonseed elixir to give her a weapons bonus. So she will be placing that into her inventory, and we will be receiving the prism key, which ultimately we will be able to use to equip this sword. And let's take a look at the prism sword. It says the prism sword must be unlocked with the prism key to equip it. Both must be equipped, okay. And it requires a 7 power or is two-handed. Well, we currently have, let's just pull up here to see what the implications of this are. We do actually have more than a 7 power right now with our heavy blade. So oddly, the fact that we are carrying a heavy blade is contributing to our strength to then also carry this as a one-handed item. Otherwise, we would have needed to discard the heavy blade because we can only have up to 2 hands in terms of items. We do not have enough AP left to do everything we need to do in this turn, however, because it says we need to equip both the sword as well as this key in order to consider the sword fully utilized. And what we are ultimately attempting to do is to equip a new weapon and keep it for 2 game rounds to fulfill this side quest. So the most thing that we can do right now in this for our 1 remaining action point regarding this is to equip the, well, it doesn't really matter, I guess, what we equip, so we can equip this key first. So that will be our last action point. We will equip the key and therefore get ready to equip the sword and fulfill one of those side quests when the next turn happens. But at this point now, Bilkit is done with all of his actions. As I said, the only character yet to go is Haglor the Ghostly, and we'll talk about him in a moment. But first I want to pull in and look at the Bilkit's quest here, this 6 quest point quest where he needs to find a hero, which we did at the beginning of the game, his first turn, equip him, and then it says, and in 2 game rounds at the beginning of the round or whenever possible after, place them into an empty location. Your hero or their follower must defeat the drawn hero in combat once to gain 6 quest points. So my interpretation of this was that he did not need to do that this turn, but he will need to do it the next turn, that there is no option. So this is going to require that we have an empty location and that we have an empty location that we can get to so he can defeat this character. I'm saying that because now we move to Haglor the Ghostly. And Haglor the Ghostly has in his hand 2 cards. He has a follower, Prince Braggot the Frail, and he also has a location. It doesn't sound like the greatest location, Dead's Toll House Pass, but it is a location nonetheless. My plan was for him to place his location and then also place this follower, because we know that for the side quest of the plant man, he needs to gain a follower, and I thought I would provide him with this follower to gain. However, if I put this follower here in this pass, it won't be an empty location, and therefore Bilkid wouldn't be able to use that location to do his heroic quest, which is a bigger one, worth 6 quest points. And I feel that I would like to get that undertaken, because my plan way back earlier in the video, as I mentioned, was to have Princess Bretta helping with this, because if she helps with this fulfillment of heroic quest, she herself will also fulfill a heroic quest. Thus, for his first action point, he is going to place the Dead's Toll House Pass, and we're going to read location 13 in the book. Again, more spoiler alerts. This can be placed, there are some placement rules, but I'm not going to really go into them in detail here, but let's just say we're going to place this here. We have a passageway out, and that was 1 AP, and we will read about location 13 from Book B, which we are following, and it says, Dead's Toll House Pass. There is a small wooden structure ahead that has a toll bar extending from it. The bar is down, blocking the road. To your amazement, a swirling cloud of red dust appears on the other side of the toll bar. The cloud begins to coalesce into a petite young woman with gray, scale-covered skin. She's wearing a tattered brown cape, a leather jacket, and riding chaps. When a player's hero or follower enters this location, read action 024B. Well, nobody's going there yet. We know that something will happen there, but nobody's going there yet. He has 2 actions left, and as the second one, he's carrying this square wooden shield, and it cannot be used by ghost faction characters. So there's no point in my hanging on to this. There is a side quest, and in fact, it is held by Bilkid right now, that says you will gain an action point if you completely fill your hero's inventory, but the ghost doesn't have this, so there's no point in him hanging on to something that he can't use, and there's no other obvious thing I want to do, so I'm going to drop the square wooden shield here in the crossroads, and I'll show you what happens when you drop something. What happens is you take a token, and this is the first thing that I drop, so it's marked with number 1, and I will be placing 1 token here on the shield and a corresponding number token here in the place that it is dropped, and then I'll just find a place to keep this and know that when we get here we can reference what this is. This isn't necessarily organized the best way possible, but that is what we chose to do with our second action, is to drop something, and we have one more action to. And for my third action, I am going to equip myself with this leather body armor. It will be reducing my speed by 1 while I am equipped, but it's going to give me an additional shield benefit where it will bring me from 1 to 2, and I would like that. So I'm going to flip this over to indicate the 2 because I've equipped this, and it's also going to change my value. My luck value is going to go from 6 to 7, and this will then move from the inventory to the equipment area here, and you can see that I am still within the requirements. I have the ghost sword in one hand, 1 gem, and 1 body armor, and that is going to be my third action of the turn. And now everybody has taken their actions. The first turn, or the first round, I guess it's called, of the game is over, and what I will be doing to advance to the second round is moving the day ahead. As we begin turn 2 here, I want to point out a few things. My Plant Man's heroic quest involves adding quest points to each side quest that he completes and building up additional quest points this way up until he gets potentially 4, and then he would get a bonus and discard. So I need to well, and then discard and then sleep for a complete round. And of course, the flavor text here, I should really read this to you. Essentially, he has downed several flagons of ale at a local tavern, stumbled out the door, and begun his journey home. Then he gets lost. And so basically, the Plant Man is a little bit hungover for the beginning of this story. And he's going to be doing some side quests to gain some more quest points. He had completed 1 side quest, and I never really indicated that here. So I need to find a way to indicate that. I guess I'll just take, I will take perhaps one of these. I don't know. You may see this switched out, but the point is that I'm going to be building up quest points here for my heroic quest for him as I complete side quests. So I wanted to clean that up. I also wanted to clarify the fact that when we placed this location here, the Dead's Toll House Pass, it came in with a description that indicates that somebody is actually in it. So it is not an empty location. And because it is not an empty location, it will not be able to be part of fulfilling the Bilkid the Strong's quest here, where he needs to place a hero, clearly it says, into an empty location. What this is telling me, I believe, at the beginning of this turn, is that I can't really run the risk of just placing a new location and hoping that it's going to be empty, because I must place this hero and fight him this turn. So I believe what I am figuring is we have to move our party into the Dead's Toll House Pass, thereby leaving the crossroads as a definite empty location, because what's here is simply an item. It's not a person. We know that it's empty. There's not going to be any other thing happening here. When we are here, then I need to place the previously chosen hero that Bilkid needs to fight in that spot to start to fulfill that quest. Thus, the beginning of this turn, or at least certain actions in this turn, are going to be pre-dictated to us by the knowledge that we need to do that. And this is where, again, I think you can see how I refer to this game as really a puzzle game, at least as played as I am, co-op with 4 players. I'm playing alone with 4 players co-op. What we need to do, and I'm going to do this off the video because we're already running long, is I need to sort of review everything that's going on and see how I think I can maximize the action points that I have here in this turn, and I will restore everybody's 3 action points. I know that somebody's going to need to spend an action to move the entire party out of the crossroads. That's going to happen. And then we are going to have Bilkid place his hero to fight his hero. Now, I don't think he needs to use an action point to place that hero. I'll confirm that. But of course, he is going to need to use an action point to engage in combat. And again, as we know, we're going to bring back Princess Bretta as well to help with that combat. Actually, before I do my assessment, what I want to do at the beginning of this round, everybody is going to be able to draw up a side quest. And I realized that I think I forgot to do that with the ghost character and also possibly Princess Bretta at the first turn, but I'm just going to forget that now. But everybody can draw up to another side quest if they don't have 3 yet. So I'm going to do that first to see if that's going to impact everything. And this is just a random draw. So we'll draw Princess Bretta is going to receive this side quest. Are you a hero or are you a bandit? Have your hero take 1 item from 3 different defeated characters. Okay, gain 2 quest points. This is possibly something I would consider discarding because we don't even, that seems like it would come much later in the game when we actually had defeated characters, but we'll see. We'll hang on to it for right now. There's nothing we can do about it. This is going to be for the Plant Man. What's that in the distance? Play a location card. Okay, gain 1 quest point. So he's now at his maximum of 3. And we will have Bilkid's is going to be side quest. Here's something. Find 3 items while searching, and he will get a quest point for that. So that's going to give some possible direction. And then finally for the ghost, I see you there. Play a character card. Gain 1 quest point. All right. So this is where that stands. And at the beginning of the turn as well, everybody is going to draw a card. They can draw either a location, an item, or a character card. So we do know, for example, that we have this quest here for the Plant Man to play a location card. He happened to be the guy who played this location card to start with. So it's obvious that when he draws a card, he's going to draw a location card so that he'll have it ready to play. He'll put that into his hand and have it ready to play. Nothing else at the moment is changing or is obvious based on those cards that we drew. So I'm going to review the situation and then come back with a plan. I think beyond having the Plant Man get a location, I'm simply going to have everybody else, the princess, Bilkid, and the ghost, what's his name? Haglor the Ghostly. I think I'm going to all have them just take item cards because we already in our hand have a follower, that's Haglor, a location, and another follower. We already have this Eggman that's part of somebody's quest. So we're really not in need of characters right now, but we could use we'll do it in order. So Princess Bretta is going to, for her card of the draw at the beginning of the turn, she's going to choose this item. She gets a gleaming sword, and this requires 4 power or has to become 2-handed. Right now, she could hold it as a 1-handed sword. So this is going to go, again, into her inventory. She cannot automatically equip it because that takes an action. And she's still below 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. She's still below her limit. Next up, we have the location that we decided that the Plant Man is going to draw so that he can place it and do that side quest. And he drew this ancient quarry. So he has a location. This location is going into his hand. Again, the hand different from the inventory and the equipment. And he's going to be holding on to that. And then we will have Bilkid is drawing an item. And he draws a rotting fish. Rotting fish. So this is going to be, whoops, let him heal some health. And it can also be used to pass unharmed through one location with an aggressive beast faction character or an Orpal Wanderer. Discard this card after it has been used. Interestingly, the robot here is aggressive toward the ghostly, Haglor the Ghostly. However, the robot is a construct and not part of this faction. If that were different, if it was a beast or Orpal Wanderer, we might want to retain that information and possibly give this to this guy to use if he wanted to go there. I'm only mentioning this again to give you some flavor for the potential complexity of the game if you can keep in mind everything that's going on. Nevertheless, we'll put that into our inventory. And then finally, our last item draw is going to be for Haglor the Ghostly, and his item is Egg Armor. It's a painful fit. The spikes on the inside of this armor make it difficult to put on. When characters that are not Ovioid faction choose to equip this item, roll 2d6. You could be taking 2 damage for this. So, I don't know. That might be just something to drop. We will put that in our inventory, and somebody could potentially pick it up. Maybe we'll just get rid of it. That is the beginning portion of the turn. Nobody's used any actions yet, but now we need to start expending actions to do things in the turn. And clearly what we need to do is move out, drop the follower there. Excuse me. We need to clearly move out, create the empty location in the crossroads so that Bilkid can begin to fulfill his heroic quest. I don't know why I keep calling it request. His heroic quest, and come back and have some combat, and that's what's going to happen next. In the interest of time for this video, I have moved my characters, as I said I would, back to the crossroads and gotten in the combat situation that is set up. I used the necessary actions. A few points to just clean up. I tried to clean this up in titles on the rest of the video, but in case I missed anything, I did 2 things when filming. There are a lot of cards and things, and I was moving things around, and there was a moment where I confused the quest of needing to kill this hero with the plant man. It was actually Bilkid's quest. It was always Bilkid's quest. So that's number 1. Number 2, I was making a big deal about the fact that the princess was going to help out and thus get some quest points because she needs to aid somebody in their quest. However, when I read the heroic quest again very clearly, it does state that the fulfillment of the request is such that your hero or their follower must defeat the drawn hero in combat once to gain 6 quest points. I take that to mean with no help, because it's pretty clear that way. You can't even use a follower with you. You just have to be on your own or with your follower. So for this reason, you see the setup for combat here is going to be one-on-one combat. It's going to be Bilkid the Strong versus Kreft the Ancient. Kreft the Ancient was drawn randomly as per the quest rule, and they are located in an empty place and will be conducting combat to fulfill that quest. The first thing that you do, there's a brief reference here. Combat is relatively simple except for one little thing, which I will get into. The first thing you do is you see the battle turn order determine the first strike. At the beginning of combat, all involved characters roll their speed plus 2d6 plus any first strike bonuses, and the high number gets the first strike. So Kreft the Ancient here has some bonuses. His speed is 3. However, he's carrying this spear. Now, these were randomly generated cards. He has a spear, which has long reach, so he gets +1 to his first strike, and he also is carrying this temporal beacon, which gives him a +1 to his first strike. So he will get a plus 2d6 plus his speed benefit, which is 3 for his total roll. So we'll give this a roll and see what he gets. And he rolls well. He rolls a 9 plus 2, 11 plus 3. So that's what we're dealing with, 14 on his side. We'll remember that number. Bilkid the Strong, let's see, does he have, his speed is a 3, and I do not see any benefit that he gets. So he's going to have to roll super high to beat that, and he rolls super low. He rolls a total of 3. So clearly, Kref the Ancient may be ancient, but he's going to be coming at us first. And then we move into the second portion of the combat, which is to deal the damage. We take our power plus 2d6 plus any attack bonus we have, and then we subtract the defense. And we will do that and back and forth until we have, in this point, we really need somebody to die to complete the quest, and that somebody needs to be Kref the Ancient. One more point I want to make that's somewhat of a cleanup point. In the mistake I made early on about confusing who had what quest, you may recall, if you're really watching this whole thing through, that this Moonseed elixir was traded away. I traded it back, and I used an action point to do it, so it's all legal per the rules, but I realized that Bilkid is going to be in combat alone, and I want him to be able to consume this Moonseed elixir and also show you how the use of an item in combat works, because that's where I think that the rules are a little bit fiddly, although I appreciate the concept, and we'll show you that when it comes time. But in the meantime, we have an attack of Kref the Ancient onto Bilkid, so he will be rolling. He's got his stat here. His power stat is 3, and he's going to roll 2d6, and he has attack bonus of 1. And these stats, again, if you watched the earlier in the video, are established and set up based on the items and things that he's carrying. So he rolls, he rolls a 5, plus a 3 is 8, plus a 1 is a 9. Now, the damage done is going to be subtracted by, I see we're missing here a token that fell off. We have a +1 shield value from our prism key, which we had equipped prior to this combat. Just to go back for a second, with that discussion of the prism sword and the prism key, both of which I needed to equip and which one I was going to equip first, I happened to choose the key, not really focusing on the fact that it did give me this defense value, and so that was a smart thing to do, because this sword actually does not, and I would not even have been able to make use of that right now. So in any case, we only have a 1 defense, which is unfortunate. So what did I say? The damage done to us now is 8. So we're going to go down 8 in health, and we're going to keep the maximum marked here at 40 and then give our current health at 32. So that was the first round of combat. Now we are going to attack back. And here is the part of combat that is somewhat confusing to me. And it involves using or equipping items during combat. Essentially, what you're told to do is, before you calculate the damage on a combat turn, you are to roll 2d6, and based on that roll, you will assess how effective your use of an item is. So if you're rolling high, between 8 and 12 on 2d6, you can use the item as you expect to roll it. If you're rolling between 4 and 7, you have to reduce the attack damage that you do by 1d6, and then if you're rolling low, if you're rolling between 2 and 3, you can use the item, but then you reduce your damage by 2d6. In theory, I get it. I think the concept is that you're in the middle of combat and may not be able to effectively pull in or use something as you wish. Maybe you try to drink this elixir and it spills out because you're running around. I sort of get that, but it creates a lot of die rolling in the middle of combat, a lot of extra die rolling, and also conceptually, for example, here, the elixir is meant to give a +2 attack bonus for one battle. So to say that I drink it after battle commences before damage is dealt also seems odd to me. Now, maybe I'm misunderstanding that part of the rule in conjunction with this item, but I'll be following it as best I can. It also subjects your items to just complete luck because you're literally just rolling 2d6s. There's no modifiers, there's no nothing. So you can, in effect, almost waste your item totally if you roll low. Nevertheless, I'm trying to follow the rules. Maybe people know in the comments can clarify for me if I'm doing something incorrectly. So in this instance, the other point is that this is meant to be a +2 attack bonus. I'm going to say that I will consume it. I will get that +2 attack bonus, and then again on the damage, it will be affected. Something's not quite right, and maybe the mistake is mine. However, I am going to consume this elixir and bump up my attack bonus from where it stands now at 3. Actually, I realize it should also be 4. This is incorrect because I've got the prism key. So this is already incorrect. This should be 4. So I'll try to fix that. And I'm going to consume the elixir. So I'm going to make this attack bonus a 6. I didn't find a token indicating a +6 attack bonus, but we're marking it this way to remind ourselves, and we are going to attack back, Bilkid the Ancient, rolling our 2d6, and we roll a 9, and we have the 9 plus the 6 is the 15, plus we have our power is an 8. So we have rolled 23, potentially 23. And now here is where we got to do this roll to see how effective this elixir is. And we roll a 7. So this means that we can use this item, but we have to reduce our attack damage by 1d6. I should have been writing this down because I can't remember where things are. We're going to be reducing whatever damage I said by 3. Thus, we do 20 damage to Kreft the Ancient on the first turn, and well, that's half actually. So he started at 40, and we don't need to be concerned with his maximum health because we're not regenerating here. So he's just going to go down to 20, and combat is going to continue on. So we'll go to the next round of combat. I will say one thing or pose one question again. I believe that this roll to assess how effective my elixir is, and actually properly speaking, I should have this elixir either equipped or gone because I've just consumed it. I'm not going to be doing that roll each time for damage because I feel that I've consumed it once and it is or is not effective. And in this case, it was effective -3. So I'm going to go with that, and that's just the way it's going to roll here. Kreft the Ancient is going to come back at us with his roll, and again, he's going to be rolling his 2d6 plus his power plus any attack bonuses. So he is at, let's see, we can see that in here. He's got his 2d6, which he's again rolled a 9, or again, somebody rolled a 9, 10, 11, 12. And his attack bonus is 1. That's 13 minus our shield value of 12. Now we're going to continue on here. So let's see. We have lost 12. So we are down to 20 health. And now we're going to give it a roll and hit back at him. Hope for the best. And remember, we did not roll well. Unfortunately, we rolled a 4. So we have a 4 plus an 8. That's a 12, and we've got a 12 plus a 6 is an 18. 18, 17, 16, 15 we did, because I'm subtracting that 3 again. So we did 15 damage to him. He's down to 5. And back at us. We have lost quite a bit of health, but we need to, this is our quest right now. So this is what it is. Now, I did notice here, although this is not, it says, Bilkid the Strong says, on a battle turn, once per battle, roll 2d6. If 10 to 12, unequip one enemy item. Interesting. Well, we might as well try to do that. It doesn't say when we can do it. Might as well. And I will try to unequip his spear and take him down with no attack bonuses. Why not? So got to roll a 10 to 12 for this. So this roll is my Bilkid the Strongest, attempting to disarm, rolling a lot of 9s, Kref the Ancient. Well, that did not happen. We just missed. Well, we tried. All right, it's back to Kreft. He is hanging on here with 5 health, but he's going to give it a roll and strike back at us. Again, he's rolling an 11 plus his 12, because he's still hanging on to the spear, 13, 14, 15. 15, and we are defending 1, so that's a 14, down 14, and my math is pretty bad, but I think that brings us down to 6 health. Let's hope we can take him out, because we're going to need to do some serious healing now. If you imagine that our total health here was 40, and we're down to 6. So we're still rolling with all of our benefits. We roll a 6. This should probably do it. A 6 plus a 6 is a 12. 20. I think my math is right there, but we're subtracting 3. That's 17. Nevertheless, even if my math is wrong, we have successfully gotten rid of Kreft the Ancient with the help of some baseline stats, with the help of this Moonseed Elixir. Even though it wasn't quite as effective as it could be, it still brought us something. And that is an example of combat. We need to clean up Bilkid here. So we will be discarding this elixir that was consumed, and then with it we will discard this additional bonus that he received on his weapon, bringing him back down to the 4 attack bonus. And he is now at 6 health. And this is something that is a good segue into talking about this game a little bit, because what this means, this combat was happening, and this space here is just, I had to reposition to film that combat properly. This combat that happened here in the crossroads between Bilkid and Kreft the Ancient is going to impact the rest of the game, the rest of the world. First of all, he will be fulfilling this quest. So the next thing that will happen is we're going to mark his quest points now. Let's see. I guess I do that. Technically, I'm going to do that at the end of this round. So I won't do that now because everybody else hasn't gone their full turn yet. But in addition to that, what it's going to cause me to do is to revisit what everybody has. Can somebody give him an item that will help him heal? There's this bitter blood tonic here, and this will increase his base health and then decrease it. Well, that's not exactly what we're looking for. Anyway, I've got to look through all these items and see. Here we go. Let's see. Oops. For 2 AP, this Gorgonberry tonic, heal 20 health. Well, here we go. That is something. All of a sudden now, the plant man is going to need to give this to Bilkid, and he will need 2 action points to consume it, which he definitely does have. But this means that one of the plant man's actions is going to be doing that, and that's a third of his entire turn. What this is demonstrating is the real effective way in which the action restriction causes the game to coalesce, and that the individual characters, I call them a party when I move them, but I will say that the feeling of this game is very much, and I think that's because its roots are really as a competitive game. But the feeling of this game is very much as four individual characters trying to complete their own objectives and then being forced to work together. So my sense is that this plant man, he probably doesn't want to spend a third of his actions. He's got his own things that he wants to do. He needs to gain a follower. He wants to kill a certain character. He wants to do as many side quests as possible to fulfill his main quest. I don't think he necessarily wants to spend a third of his turn giving this tonic to Bilkid. But you know what? He's going to have to do that. And that is where the characters come alive in the game because of the mechanics of the game, not so much as a party, but as individuals traveling in this world, trying to work together. It's co-op, and it's fully co-op in the sense that the co-op rules clearly state there's no PvP allowed in co-op. But there is definitely a sense that you are having to sacrifice something because of the restrictions on what you can do to help somebody else. You just have to do it because we can't afford to lose Bilkid, and his health now is so low because he was completing his quest. So that is just one of the ways in which the game functions effectively to create a world that is dynamic, that when one thing happens, it does rearrange everything else. And that gets back to what I was saying very earlier on in the video of this game has the feel, when played this way, when played with four characters but one player, meaning you, very much of a puzzle, fitting the pieces together effectively to attain the larger goal of the quest points, but having to do so with a lot of different moving parts. And when one thing changes, it affects everything else. One thing I didn't talk about at all, although you've seen it a lot in the video because it's so big, are these big cards here. And this is on the back of them are deities, I guess you would say they are, that grant divine powers if you fulfill these missions. And I did assign them randomly to my characters. It's yet another layer of something to do, of something to try to think about when you're playing. I haven't focused on that at all in the video, not because I'm disregarding it in the gameplay, but just there was a lot going on. But I did want to make a point of mentioning, well, what are these things? And that's what they are. So there are, you could in effect think of it as another side quest, except when you do it, you will get a pretty significant power like this divine power. You can reshuffle a deck if you draw a card you don't like. So that's pretty significant. To what extent would you focus on doing that? Well, that's a different question. The game turn, the game is restricted in this regard. It is for the course of a day, so you're only having 12 rounds in the game. Yet it doesn't feel to me like a time pressure game that you're running against the clock. You are, in effect, obviously, because you only have 12 rounds. But because it's so intricate and because there's so much going on, it doesn't really have that feel. And I say that in a good way because I don't like games, especially playing solo, where it's a beat the clock kind of thing. I don't find that enjoyable at all. And that feeling doesn't happen here. The other thing that doesn't really happen here is the feeling of trying to attain just a number. And in effect, that's what you're trying to do. Everybody's trying to get 20 points. I mean, when the game boils down to it, everybody's trying to get 20 points in 12 rounds. That's it. In terms of the scoring mechanism, as it were, there is a scoring mechanism, but the game doesn't feel like that kind of game. And again, I say that in a positive way. I have very limited negative things to say about this game. It is well produced. It is well integrated. It needs a player aid card that it doesn't have. That's one thing. But I noticed that somebody just posted a fan-made thing on BGG for that. And it also needs clarified and better developed solo rules. And that too has been created. I don't know if it's posted yet, but over on BGG, and I put a link down below to that thread, there was Daniel Davis of the Dungeon Dive made some solo rules variant, and I believe they've been modified a little bit and developed by the designer of the game and put into a PDF that should be available, clarifying some of the solo rules. And when I say solo, meaning playing just one character, I chose to play this and demonstrate it and discuss it as co-op. For me, as a solo player, I think this is the way to go with this game. The level of complexity and involvement it adds with narrative and the puzzle aspect of it, that's how my preferred way of playing will be. Although I do think the solo rules that will be posted or are already up there in the BGG thread help a lot in mitigating some of the problems with the game with just one character going through a world where it really needs to be populated more than it is. The final point on the game, I didn't talk about the Vile Invaders expansion at all. This, because I haven't played it, but this adds a great mechanic where you can craft or make something. And I've said this in one of my, or at least one of my solo RPG videos. The concept of creation, of making something in the game, of collecting pieces of things to create something new, I think is vastly underutilized by game designers just across the board. I'm not really sure why, because it's not so difficult, I think, to conceptualize, yet it gives you such a feeling of achievement. And I love the fact that this expansion includes crafting. I did not integrate it into this video because, well, first of all, I haven't already played it, and second of all, was obviously enough going on here that I wanted to talk about without including that. But I did want to make a point of mentioning that this expansion for Dark Venture. And overall, Dark Venture, this has been one of the most thoroughly satisfying gaming experiences I've had with a new game in quite some time. It's a puzzle, it's a world, it is characters that are unique and do not feel stale and hackneyed and overdone. Dark Venture, the adventure card game.